Welcome to ASHRAE's Tech Hour. Today's subject, ASHRAE's Building EQ, Be an Energy Genius. Our speaker today is Doug Cochran. He's a distinguished lecturer and speaker and is an independent consultant from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. He holds a mechanical engineering degree from Ryerson University and is a professional engineer, lead AP, with over 30 years' experience in system selection and energy-saving solutions. He holds extensive ASHRAE experience, including past DRC Region 2, immediate past chair of the Building EQ Committee, and distinguished lecturer.
Good day, and welcome to ASHRAE's Tech Hour. Today we're going to be talking about ASHRAE's Building EQ, Be an Energy Genius. That's Building EQ, powered by ASHRAE. I'm Doug Cochran, so stay with me as we take a journey as to what Building EQ is all about. With the global push by 2050 for net zero energy and net zero carbon, energy reduction will be the key. Buildings account for over 40% of total energy use and over 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. The majority of buildings today, over 75%, will still be here in 30 years. So addressing these buildings and their energy use is key as we move forward. Building EQ is a tool that can help address these energy improvements. Just a note for everybody that ASHRAE does have the Vision 2030 website that's now up. And that's not only Vision 2030, but it's Vision 2030 and beyond. And there's also a recently formed decarbonization task force. So look for more details of that in the days ahead. Building EQ has evolved over the years from what was manual spreadsheets to the current online portal we have today. We've really progressed with this portal. We've moved from letter grades now to a numbered system on a sliding scale. We've also got away from trying to compete with other things. We think ASHRAE's Building EQ offers more because not only do we do a building asset score, but we also give tangible things that can be improved on a building to do. We're letting people know how buildings can be improved. So, Building EQ is the online web-based portal. We calculate the building EUI, that's energy use intensity, in BTUs per hour foot squared, or kilowatts per hour meter squared, and that's based on climate zone. So it's independent of where you are, it's based on what the actual climate zone is for that. It benchmarks energy performance. It is not an energy modeling tool. You still will be using whatever energy software to come up with your loads, etc. on a building. And actually in the as design part, you actually have to input what energy software you did use. We assist with an ASHRAE Level 1 energy audit. We do generate the score, and you can see the score there on the right-hand side of the screen. And we give you data to improve energy performance. And I think that's one of the key indicators of Building EQ is we let you know how you can improve your building from what it is today. When we compare this to other energy reporting programs, it's clear that Building EQ does more than others. The EPA Portfolio Manager is strictly benchmarking. This is something that is free to everybody in North America, but it's strictly a benchmark. You have to achieve that score of 75 in order to be Energy Star qualified. The DOE Building Asset Score gives you that asset rating. Building EQ gives you the benchmarking, the energy score, as well as the energy audits. If we look at some other ones that are out there, LEED, Green Globes, BOMA 360, these have criteria that expand beyond energy. The one thing with building EQ is we are just looking specifically at energy, so it's more focused on the energy perspective. There are also mandatory state and local benchmarking, labeling, and disclosure programs out there. So if we take a look, how does building EQ stack up? Well, building EQ is the only tool that will do benchmarking, energy audit, and asset rating. The portfolio manager is just benchmarking. The DOE asset score is just the asset rating. ASHRAE standard 211 is benchmarking and energy audit. And the ISO 5002 standard, which is an international standard on energy audits, only covers benchmarking and energy audits. Globally, there's energy performance certificates that you're seeing here. The European Union has developed things for each member state. They've put together a general set of guidelines, and each state has to come up with their own to come up with these energy performance certificates. One of the issues here is that a rating in Finland is not the same as a rating in Greece. The differences being, one in the north, one in the south, you have to make allowances for that. So the EU is looking at, is this something we can do? The European Commission is also looking at to say, can we come up with what minimum energy standards are for each individual building? It's a key thing. One of the staggering numbers I just heard is that with their targets by 2030, they need to renovate 35 million buildings. So it just shows you how drastic measures have to be taken in the next less than 10 years to be able to achieve those sustainability goals. One of the interesting websites that's out there is the buildingrating.org/jurisdictions. This will give you what's going on in different areas. So for instance, the state of Washington has building rating performance initiatives. New York City, Atlanta. So it's all over the country, and you'll see this map will show you both mandatory and voluntary policies. In my home province of Ontario, there's energy and water reporting that's required for any building that is above 50,000 square feet. And we'll see more of this as we come in. Although building EQ only looks at energy, I think water efficiency is something that people have to keep in the back of their mind when they're looking at improving building performance. As we expand this outside of North America, you can see where there is mandatory policies. So we've already mentioned the European Union. You can also see China and Australia also have jurisdictions where there's mandatory policy to help improve the energy and water performance of their buildings. Universities using BuildEQ to improve their campus buildings and provide students with hand-on experience in energy auditing and HVAC principles. This is something that we've worked on with APA, the Association of Physical Plant Auditors for Higher Learning, trying to come up with what can we do to help improve campus buildings and try and get students involved. At the Orlando Winter Conference in 2020, the committee put together a seminar based on what was going on in Central Florida. And what I think is unique about this is we combine the Florida Institute of Technology, the ASHRAE Space Coast chapter, and Brevard County Schools to do a pilot to say, what can we do to help improve these buildings? The unique part is students got hands-on experience to see what's going on in day-to-day life and how systems actually work. Doing the audit helped them gain real-life experience that helped them get their jobs. I encourage you to check out the ASHRAE.org/BuildingEQ website, because this seminar 42 is on there and you can see all the things that have gone on. Further to that, places like the University of Nebraska, as part of their sustainability study, has gone out and said building EQ will be used on all their buildings to try and come up. And I think it's a unique opportunity to try and mesh facilities, academics, students, and chapter members all working together for a common goal. And I know in my own home chapter now, our local college is going to be working with me and a few others from the chapter in looking at some nonprofit housing and what we can do to improve that. On the government affairs side of things, a couple of things that are out there is Florida State now has legislation which recognizes building EQ as a qualified energy rating option for all buildings. The city of Orlando has an ordinance that includes building EQ and ASHRAE standard 211 for completion of level 1 energy audits. So what the committee has done is put together a flyer, and I encourage all chapter members to do this, to talk to your local municipalities, provinces, states, and at the federal level to see if building EQ can be part of trying to make this a better sustainable world. Okay, when we look at building EQ overall, I just want to point out that anyone can get a building energy performance score. Let me say that again. Everybody can get a free score. You have to go in. If you're not already registered, register on the portal, input some data, and you can get a score of how your building is doing. What that score does is it opens up the dialogue on possible improvements and what we can do to make that building more energy efficient. Credentialed users, which I'll talk about shortly, can submit for an official rating. So this is a project that would be approved by ASHRAE and give you the official rating. The benchmarks are aligned with standard 90.1. Again, that ASHRAE standard alliance is in there, building credibility into what's coming out of that building EQ score. There's two ways this can be achieved with building EQ. There's both the in operation and the as designed. So the in operation is based on actual energy use, and this is key because it resonates with the decision makers and the bean counters, because we're talking about actual dollars being spent on energy use. The as designed is based on a standardized model, and it gives additional information for decision makers, and we're going to go through each of these individually. There's the in operation assessment. You'll see that on an actual building score, it'll say whether it's in operation or as designed, the month and the year that it occurred, and also what the actual score is. So the rating here is from 0, which stands for net zero energy, to 200, which is a very inefficient building, with 100 being an average or median score. This is the most common application and is used in over 90% of the projects that are currently in the portal. What is great about the in-operation assessment is it allows for tracking of improvements, and you can compare the buildings to itself over time. So with the assessment, you'll see how good is your building. How do I stack up versus other buildings in a similar climate zone? You're going to get the energy bills. You're going to do a walkthrough. So that walkthrough is part of the level 1 energy audit. Is you're going to be going through the plans and the specs. You're going to be talking to the facility people how they operate the building. You're going to be taking a look at the equipment, looking at the entire system, and trying to point out, is there anything that is opportunities for improvement? So that could be thermostat settings. It could be, dirty filters. It could be an outdoor air damper that's not working properly. It could be an open valve. It can be a number of things, but it really gives you an indication of what's going on. With that information, you would enter your data into the portal and get the score. With that score, if you want to, you can get a building label award, and there's details on the portal telling you how you can get that plaque made up. But I think the key driver here is that once you have the score, you can start the dialogue with the owner on how you can improve your building score. The one thing I will point out with this is in the as design is using a standardized energy model. It's evaluating potential energy use. and it's independent of the building occupancy and operating conditions. One thing the committee is doing right now is looking at the new ASHRAE headquarters to come up with an as-designed rating. There's been a few issues we're working through with the model that we were given, but that will come out. I think that's key for ASHRAE members to see how our building does, because as we know, we just added photovoltaics, which are currently being installed, to see if we can get to net zero energy. If you look at that sample report on the left, I like this because this particular one here was done in both as designed and in operation. So here you can see 45 as designed, 50 in operation. As we all know, buildings can be designed a certain way, but the buildings are not operated the way that they were designed. And this is showing that this building is slightly less efficient than what was designed. And I think this is important moving forward to see how this is. So, the envision for the ASHRAE headquarters would be you do it again in a year, and we'll see how we compare. Have we got better, or have we got to that net zero? But again, that rating from 0 to 200, it definitely gives you a sliding scale as to how efficient that building really is. Why would you want the as design? In a lot of cases, it may be, a real estate transaction. Do you want to buy the building? You want to know up front how efficient that building is. So the as designed assessment, much like the in operation, is that you will do a walkthrough. You want to verify that what was as designed was actually installed in the building. You're going to enter that data into the portal. You're going to get a score, and potentially that score could have a high energy usage. On the right-hand side, you'll see an example here of a 24/7 call center. With the as-designed method, that would be re-rated, and you'd actually get a better rating because it's neutralized operating conditions. It's sort of a standardized model where we've taken the information and normalized it to try and take out of all the abnormalities you may see in what's going on. The as-designed rating, the building has to operate less than 12 months. So you can go through and do this for any building that's less than a year old. It's also great for evaluating design options. So you could be going through doing a project and say, okay, what's going to happen if I add photovoltaics or I add some sort of renewable energy? It allows you to evaluate design options to come up with your final model so that you actually have your as-built conditions. And this way you'll know how efficient the building is based on the current assets that this has. All right, let's take a look at the portal. On the right-hand side here, you can see the actual login screen to the portal. And you can see there, if you don't have an account, it'll say create account. So as we've said, this is a web-based portal. Anyone can use it and get a score, but you have to be a credentialed user in order to get your project approved by ASHRAE. And there's different reports available, and I will be going through those reports one by one. The one thing with the baseline calculation is they align with the 2003 Energy Star Portfolio Manager when the building type allows. So any building that is Energy Star would be in combination with CBEX, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. All other baselines align with standard 211 methodology. The thing that I think is key with building EQ is we're adjusting the baseline based on climate zones. So therefore it is applicable globally. It doesn't matter that you're where you are. If you're in a similar climate zone, the baseline is going to be compared based on that climate zone. One of the interesting features of building EQ is building sync. It is able to communicate with building sync to allow data transfer between applications. There's actually some work going on right now with the Department of Energy to help streamline this building sync between DOE and the portal. I think this is key for building EQ moving forward, and hopefully will give us more recognition on what a great program this actually is. There's a look at what the portal looks like. Now you can manage your projects by account, by portfolio, by campus. You can maintain all the project data in one location, and you can work on a project, save it, and go back at a later time to complete it. I think that's a key thing. We really tried to build flexibility into the portal as to what it can accomplish. The other thing you can do is if you're doing a lot of work that is similar, you can create a default building and then copy to a new project. So if you're doing a lot of, similar restaurants or whatever, it's easy to be able to do that within the portal. And I think the key is flexibility here, being able to do it and make it work. Let's take a look at this short video for some more details.
So I'm going to enter a new project name. English units, test only, and it's going to be an in operation project. And I'm going to click save. All right, so now I've created my new project. I can always go back and edit that data if I want. But most importantly, I can now start entering all the information about that project.
Okay, so you do have the option with Building EQ to do as designed, in operation, or both. There's currently 3 languages in Building EQ: English, French, and Spanish. I will say all the translation was done by local ASHRAE volunteers. So those are all in the portal, and you can select what language you want. Similarly, you have a choice of either SI international units or IP inch-pound units. All countries, all climate zones are in the portal, and you can have specific currency. So be that dollar, be it euro, be it peso, whatever it happens to be. If something is missing, all you have to do is let us know, but I think we've done a good job trying to cover everything that are in those menus. Okay, so in Building EQ, in terms of what's in the actual portal, is you have tabs. And under each tab, you have accordion. So we'll go through the tabs first. So the main tabs are building characteristics. You're going to put in all your building information. Your energy, where you're going to put in your energy usage. So if you have anything from Portfolio Manager, in other words, if you've entered information into Portfolio Manager, we are able to import that data into Building EQ, saving you time. One of the questions, I guess, that currently gets asked is how long does it take to input data into the portal? If you have all your information, and again, it's going to depend on how complex the building is, you're looking at anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes. In terms of the actual job, being able to do everything, the walkthroughs, the audits, talking to facility staff, inputting the data, you're looking more at between 30 and 60 hours, depending on the complexity of the building. One of the things that I think is key for Building EQ that other things don't necessarily do is we do have an indoor environmental quality screening. You are putting in some information about the outdoor air to make sure that we are complying with ASHRAE 62. Built into the portal are also a number of energy efficiency measures that are in there. This gives you a lot of key of what I call some of the low-hanging fruit that you can give to the building owner to help improve the energy efficiency of their building. And lastly, photos and attachments. This is where you can put in a photo of what you've walked through or something you've seen that's done it. The more information that goes in, the better it is to have all the information for the client. Under each tab is what's called an accordion. So the accordion, so depending on what type of building you have, your inputs are going to be adjusted. And you're just going to input the data that is applicable to your building type. This is one of the things I really like about the program. Help screens have been put in. We're trying to make this as simple and user-friendly for people as possible. So if you're not sure what's being asked, you'll be able to hit that help button and get the information. There's a sample of what it is for building characteristics. When you input data, you're going to get one of three things. You're going to get red, which tells you that there's an error. Things are outside of what the parameters are, and it needs to be fixed. You could get a yellow, which is a warning, which says this data seems unusual. We can take it, but you just might want to double check to make sure that a mistake hasn't been made. And if it's green, everything's good, you're good to go. But I think it's good that you cannot proceed unless you've corrected mistakes that are in the portal. One of the things we've tried to do with Building EQ is make sure that we have extensive building types. So that is not only Energy Star, but more extensive building types. So you will have Energy Star, which has its own set of questions in order to maintain it, but you have other building types as well. And one of the neat features is this use of multiple use properties. So let's say you have a high rise that has some residential and some commercial on the bottom. That can be inputted, and in the portal itself you can see what type of buildings can come in. But I think that's a key thing, because seeing a lot more multi-use properties being used. Labs. This is one thing that the university folks are really keen on. We work with Labs 21 to get the most detailed lab benchmarking available. Accounts for multiple lab types, hours of operation, lab area ratio, all that's in there. So we've really tried to make this portal as accurate as possible to what the conditions are for the type of building you have. Here's a look at the reports. So user input report, that's free. You can get a PDF of the portal inputs. The label report, which we've already said is free, which will graphically show where your score is on that 0 to 200 scale. Disclosure report, which is a PDF of your key energy performance data. Your Excel spreadsheet for the level 1 energy audit. And then the narrative audit report, which actually gives you the information that's there. And I think that narrative audit report is key to this. And the price is $200. All those prices you see there are in US dollars. But that narrative audit report is actually giving you what can be done. And I think it's great to be able to give that to an owner. And we'll take a look at these in a little bit more detail. There's the label report. Like we said, it's free if you're a credentialed user. And if you want the plaque, it's something you can get. But it's nice and visual. It shows you where you are in relation to other buildings in similar climate zones. So now we're going to take an overview of the Building EQ. We'll take a tour.
So I'm going to click Manage I/O. Now this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole portal. This now includes all the inputs I need to enter information about my project. So you can see the way we have this arranged. We have 5 tabs, and within each tab we have what are called accordions, and these are kind of, think of them as sections or subsections. And within each tab and within each accordion, I can expand my accordion and then collapse it. So what this does is this organizes the information in a very efficient way, but also doesn't overwhelm the user, because there's a lot of inputs in the portal. So if you saw all those inputs at once, it would be quite overwhelming. So what we did is we organized it in this way, so it doesn't look as intimidating as overwhelming. So there's still a lot of information, but it's organized in a way where you can easily enter data, view it, or hide it. You can also save it and come back. You don't have to enter everything at once. So you can save and come back the next day if you want. So I'm going to show you how all that works. So the other thing about this portal and this part of the portal is that you get constant feedback in terms of whether the data you've entered is correct or not. And I'll show you this in a bit, but it will show you validation text warnings or errors in red or yellow. If it's red, it's an error, and that means you need to correct that for you to submit it to ASHRAE. If it's in yellow, it's a warning, meaning that it's suggesting that you make the update, but you don't have to. You can still submit the project to ASHRAE. And then if everything's okay within an accordion, you'll see on the right-hand side a green arrow, meaning that everything's okay in that accordion. You don't have to re-enter the data or update anything, and you can move on. So let me show you an example of a yellow sign here. And what this means is that there is a validation warning within this accordion. And as I mentioned, the warning is merely a suggestion for you to update data. It doesn't prevent you from submitting this project to ASHRAE. So you'll see here that this warning says the relative humidity is suggested is normally less than 60%. Meanwhile, we've entered values of 66. Not a big deal. It'll still let you submit, but you may want to edit that data. And in my other project, I'll show you an example of an error which prevents you from submitting. Okay, so let's go through some of these accordions, and let's talk about the data that we're entering. And as I mentioned, for the sake of time, I've entered all the data required to submit this project. If I was starting from scratch, it would take me a little while to do that, and that's not the purpose of this webinar today. So, first of all, if you remember a little while ago, I did talk about the help. So we have that overall help, which I displayed, but we also have this context-sensitive help, meaning you can click this little help icon, and it will bring up a help pop-up that describes what, say, this accordion is all about and what you need to do. Then even within the accordion, some of the inputs may have little help icons next to them explaining in detail what that particular input is all about. And we'll be adding more, as time goes on, but you'll see that there are various little help icons explaining to you what these various inputs mean. All right, so when you first start out, you start out with the far left tab, Building Characteristics, and within that you have 4 accordions: Building Demographics, Climate Information, Building Characteristics, and Building Performance Credentials. Now, if any of you are familiar with the spreadsheets, you'll see that there is a correlation between the organization of the spreadsheet and the organization of this, but there are also differences too. So we try to lay it out to make a little bit more sense in terms of the flow of how you're going to enter the data. So a lot of the terminology is the same between the two, but the flow may differ a little bit. So let's look at Building Demographics. So as the name implies, you're going to enter your information about the building itself, building contact information, and the assessor name. So probably the most important information here is the building type. Now these building types, as you can see, are categorized, and you select the building type that most closely approximates the building that you are working with. But then you also need to select the country and state, as you can see, the green text. So what does the green mean? Well, there are different types of buildings here. As you see, there's different categories, but there's also what are called Energy Star qualified buildings types versus non-Energy Star qualified building types. So what happens when you select an Energy Star qualified building type is that we will be able to ping what's called an architectural 2030 zero tool to calculate the median EUI. And how do you know if you've selected one? Well, I'll show you that in a bit. But for that architectural 2030 zero tool to work, you need to enter the proper inputs where the text labels are green. So in this case, I've entered Administrative Professional Office in the United States, the state of California. Okay. Now, when I'm done entering all this data, I click Save. So you can save data for each accordion and then come back to it later. So now let's move on to climate information. So here's where I enter my climate zone. As you can see, your typical climate zones here, your heating degree days and your cooling degree days, your source of climate data, and the period of data. And then next, I'm going to click my Building Characteristics tab. And this allows me to enter my gross floor area, conditioned floor area, separately metered area. It subtracts it out to get my net rated floor area. Then I enter information about the number of floors and the construction date. And then you'll see here there's this green button, Energy Star building type. So this button only appears if you selected a building type that is Energy Star qualified. So what happens when I click that button is a pop-up form appears, as you can see here. And it automatically fills in the data that I entered previously, including my floor area, my heating degree days, my cooling degree days, and I can override those for this form if I want. But then there's additional parameters that are required by the Architectural 2030 tool that is asking for. Now, a lot of this data is auto-filled in, but you may want to override it. For example, what are my weekly operating hours, number of workers on main shift, number of computers, percent that can be cooled and heated. Then I'm going to click Get EUI Values, and it's going to automatically fill in the median site EUI and my median source EUI. If I click Close and go down to the bottom and Save, what it's going to now do is it's going to fill in my median EUI based upon that call I made to the Zero tool for this Energy Star qualified building type. All right. So elsewhere in this accordion, the building characteristic accordion, we can enter a building description. Then we can enter a description of any major renovations that have occurred with the building. So you can see here, and you can add as many as you want. Description of systems commissioned. You can delete or add as many as you want. Any energy efficiency improvements and other operational features. So this allows you to really tell the ASHRAE administrator what has been done to this building over time. So once I've entered all that data, I can move on to the building performance credentials accordion, which allows me to enter any awards energy-wise that have been awarded to this building, whether we're talking NBI Core Performance, BOMA, USGBC LEED, Green Globes. Go back. And allows me to enter up to 4 here. And I can also talk about whether it's designed to meet state or provincial energy codes, and also whether it's designed to meet ASHRAE AEDG. Then I can save that information. And as you can see up top here, you get a little notice saying that it's been successfully saved. And these notices appear up top whenever you do any type of saving or anything related. All right, so we've entered the required information for our building characteristics. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to go over before I move on. I can also model multi-use buildings or multi-use properties. If I select multi-use property, you'll see what happens down here is a sub-accordion appears within my building demographics accordion. If I expand that, it now allows me to enter multiple building use types, including the areas for each and the hours of operation, and it will automatically calculate the median UI according to standard 100 based upon my inputs here. So this allows you to deal with a building that has multiple building use types. The thing is, though, your total area here must equal the total net area that you entered under your building characteristics. You can also enter separately metered excluded space information here, which the total should also equal the value entered under the building characteristics accordion. So just wanted to show you that because this is also available in the spreadsheet if you're familiar with that. So let's switch back. And in fact, I'm not going to switch back. I'm going to say I'm not going to save it. Go back. All right. So now we're going to move on to the Energy tab. So the Energy tab allows us to import or enter real-time or real utility information for various types of fuel types. So let's talk about electricity. So I've already entered data here. So I enter monthly data, including kilowatt hours for the month and the total cost. And then it totals it down here. So you should really enter a year's worth of data. And that year's worth of data should probably have ended within the past 6 months to a year. If you don't, you will get a warning. The nice thing about this also is you can import data from Portfolio Manager. So if you already have data in Portfolio Manager, live, real live electricity data, meter data, you can go into Portfolio Manager, save as Excel, then import that Excel into this, and it will automatically populate this. So it'll save you from having to do double entry. So down here is where I enter additional electric utility information, including total kWh used in my peak month, my peak electrical demand, the month of the peak. I also enter energy rate information here. So the information that's really used to calculate your building EQ score is your total kilowatt hour, which is actually converted to site energy in kBTU and source energy. I can also enter other fuel types, including natural gas, LP gas, steam, etc. Now, if you have multiple meters, just enter it under additional fuel type and select. If you have another electrical meter, just enter kWh and enter that additional. So when you've entered all your information here, it will be added up, and I'm not going to save that. It's going to be added up here, and you'll see your total site and source energy. If you have any renewable energy, it will credit that, and then it will total it here. And then using all of the data, including your total source energy divided by your gross floor area or your net rated floor area, it will calculate your source EUI. And then it takes your median EUI, which we got from the Architectural 2030 tool, do the math, and calculate your building EQ performance score. So you'll see that that value is both here and also up top here. So at all times, you can view this score as you're entering data. Energy end use is more for reference only, has no bearing on the calculations themselves, but allows you to enter your kBTU per foot squared year value for different energy use types, and it will display a pie chart with that data. Okay, let's move on to the IEQ screening tool. So this allows you to enter information about your indoor environmental quality characteristics of your building. And as you can see here, there are 5 tabs. Here you can enter review of IEQ and thermal comfort conditions. You can enter text about it. And as you can see, once again, none of this information has a bearing on the score. It's more for ASHRAE admin to get an idea of what the building's all about. Space by space measurements, you can enter information about your spaces, including the temperature, relative humidity, CO2 content, and other information. Lighting quality, enter a description of your lighting, and then enter specific information about the lighting in each of your spaces. Let me show you an example of adding a row of data. Very easy. Room 4, office 2, description, foot candles, click save. And as you can see, it saves my data. Review of ventilation for indoor quality. So here you can answer questions about your original design intent, which version of ASHRAE 62.1 you're referring to, what's the method, 62.1 method that you used, did you use the spreadsheet? Then you can also enter information about the flow rates in various areas of your building. And then there's other information down here. And finally, survey of air distribution systems. Here you describe your HVAC system type. Then if you have multiple systems, you can describe each of them, including the schedule, the distribution system, the controls, the coil cleanliness, duct liner, MERV filter level, return air plenum. And you can add as many as you want. Just click this button and you'll see another system has been added. You can enter information about that. And I'll delete it. So this is a description of your building. Next, energy efficiency measures, EEMs. There's 6 tabs here, categorized by different types of EEMs. Building envelope, and you'll see that there's drop downs here. These are pre-populated. You can select them and enter the low and upper cost and what you think the payback will be. And you can add as many as you want. Let me show you an example of a validation error. So I'm going to select an EEM, and I'm going to enter a low cost that's higher than an upper cost, and I won't select the payback. Now I'm going to click save. So you'll see here I have an error. Because I have an error, it will not let me submit. So that error displays a red X in the upper right-hand portion of the accordion. And it also explains to me what my errors are. And what the error is telling me is that my low cost obviously must be lower than my upper cost. And also I need to select the payback, period. So this is an example of validation error. So if I go ahead and correct that situation, and then click Save, you'll see that the validation errors disappear and it's back to green. Now I can move on to lighting and daylighting. So these are EEMs specific to lighting and daylighting. And once again, you can select any of them, enter the lower or upper cost, and payback. And then the remaining accordions are the same. HVAC system type, EEMs, refrigeration, energy generation, and then other. Now we also allow you to add your own EEMs here, free text. And the same rules apply, lower cost, upper cost, and payback. And you can enter up to 3. But we suggest that you really enter the ones or select the ones that are provided to you in the dropdowns. Okay, so we've entered all our EEMs. Let's move on to photos and attachments. So you can actually attach photos to this project and also attachments to PDFs, spec sheets, Word docs, Excel, whatever. So you click photos, and as you can see, I have a couple here already. You can choose a photo, upload it, it will display it here. You enter a description of that photo, and the image type. Will be expanding this list, but this is the list for now. And then click the little check button to register everything. So this is a list of your photos.
The performance score, like I said, helps to open that dialogue with the building owner. The in-operation, because it's based on actual energy costs, is very meaningful to people because you're talking actual dollars. And the as design is based on a standardized model. We really want to try and get towards net zero energy as we're trying to, make this a more sustainable world. There's a copy of the disclosure report. This presents key energy information. So it's basically telling you how the building is doing. This is a requirement in some areas for real estate transactions. And in order to get that, there is a $50 charge for a credentialed practitioner to approve submissions. Okay, the level 1 energy audit and building EQ. This is where the alignment has been, trying to make these as seamless as possible. So the efforts are very close. The field data is almost the same. You do require the site visit and the audit in order to make that work. And you do deliver that energy audit report that aligns with ASHRAE Standard 211. I think the key is finding out how you rank against similar buildings and getting that evaluation on how we can improve that building. There's ASHRAE Standard 211 for commercial building energy audits. Because it is an ANSI standard, it is in normative language that is standard for energy audits. And it's delivering that consistency in energy audits. If everybody's following this, you're going to get similar results across the board no matter who does it. So what you're really doing is setting the benchmark. This is the bar. This is what everybody has to meet. And doing that audit is where you come up with those energy efficiency measures. What are the areas of improvement we can make on this building? Starting that conversation with the building owner as to what we can do moving forward. What, do we have to look at more? Do we have to take some action? What improvements can we make to make this building better? So as we said, it is aligned with Standard 211. All the blank forms and stuff to be able to collect the data while on site. Once that goes in, it auto-populates into the Standard 211 spreadsheets. So I think that's key. You have all that information, it's there, and you're seeing that alignment with an ASHRAE standard. Here's the narrative audit report. What we really tried to do here is make this customizable. It is in Word format. So you can add in, say, your company logo or anything you want to do to modify this, but the format is going to be similar. You're getting all the report requirements from an ASHRAE Level 1 audit. You're populating the data into the report, and it's saving time for the assessor. And I think that's key in the grand scheme of things. So editing and tailoring for your own requirements, or there may be certain things in a jurisdiction that require changes. The consistency of reporting, and that is a $200 charge for credentialed practitioners. All right, now we're going to get into the credentialed user. So what is a credentialed user? So you either have to be a licensed engineer in your jurisdiction, so that can be anywhere in the world, professional engineer, chartered engineer, whatever the case may be, or an ASHRAE certified provider. You can be a BEP or a BEMP. A BEP is a building energy assessment professional, or a BEMP is a building energy modeling professional. Those ones there's no charge for being, if you're a BEP or a BEMP, because ASHRAE can check on that when you apply online. There is a small charge for a PE, which is $15 if you're a member, and that's just to verify that you are licensed in the jurisdiction that's there. So that's all that's to cover. But the one thing that the committee has just approved is, again, with our alignment with Standard 211, is adding these additional credential options. The AEE Certified Energy Auditor, the Certified Energy Manager, and also the EMA Energy Management Professional. So look for more details on this, but I think it's a key to show our alignment with Standard 211. The other thing that was just approved by Honors and Awards and the board is the Energy Genius Award. So what we're trying to do is recognize excellence in the assessment of building energy performance. You have to submit a project in, and it can either be in operation or as designed. And we'll take a look at these and take a look at the project information, what the improvement was, how complex the building was, did you include students, other ASHRAE resources. So look for more details to be posted soon. So in summary, Building EQ is a benchmarking, assessment, and auditing tool. It'll perform both in operation and as design ratings. It aligns with the ASHRAE Standard 211 Level 1 energy audits. We're trying to help make bad buildings good and good buildings great. Consistent benchmarking and audit formats from a group of contractors. You have that consistency. It is an ANSI standard you're trying to follow. So I think that's a key thing moving forward. Flexible for managing large portfolios of buildings and users. And I think the big thing is we're comparing buildings via climate zone rather than national boundaries. Now, some of the things that are going on the website. So if you go to ashrae.org/buildingeq, you're going to find a number of things there. You're going to find 2 videos. One is a 2-minute video just showing you what ASHRAE Building EQ is about. So that's showing you looking at the plan and specs, walking through the building, inputting the data. So it gives you a good indication of what's happening there. There are also 4 podcasts that were put together by one of the committee members. One is on an overview of Building EQ. The other one is about Level 1 energy audits. The other one is about the portal itself. And the last one is about universities. And the other video that's in there, which is 35 minutes, is a detailed walkthrough of the portal. You will also see frequently asked questions. We have a user tip and new changes, features that are in there. You'll also see flyers can be printed out. You can see sample reports. So there's definitely a lot of information on that page. So I strongly encourage you to check it out. My challenge to you is to go in the portal, enter a building, get a score, see how you're doing. I thank you for your time.